Live. All right, here we go. Perfect. All right, there we go. I realize I say the same thing pretty much every time, every single morning when I go live. That if you were watching repeatedly, you could probably repeat it with me. Michelle, good morning. I was just thinking about you. It's so good to see you. How are you today? We're talking today about a topic that I have become pretty passionate about, which is to stop apologizing for who you are. Okay? To stop apologizing for who you are. And so here is what I would invite you to think about as we enter into today. And this live stream is there any way right now that you are making yourself wrong for what you want, for how you want to do it, for being, is there any part of you that feels like you are too much, to this, to that? And let me know in the comments if you find yourself in that place. As always, to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, if you're there, pop me a comment. That is how I see you, and know that you're there. But this whole concept. Oh, Kalua, good morning. We're talking today about how to stop apologizing for who you are. Okay. This was really inspired. Oh, gosh, where do we even begin with this? This is what inspired the She Sells brand in so many ways. Was Michelle? You're saying just too slow and too tired. Wait, you're making what is? Does that mean you're wanting more, but you feel too slow and too tired? But this is so much of what inspired the She Sells brand, and what I love about this community is it is about doing things. And when I say things, obviously a lot of what we talk about here is sales, but growing your business, achieving your goals in a way that's in alignment with how you're wired. And my own experience, Sherry, good morning, good to see you. My own experience in so many years of corporate sales, and then being part of other sales training companies, was really a lot of what inspired this. Is there were methods that were taught of how to sell and how to work with our customers, that many of them felt great and felt right. But frankly, a lot of them didn't feel right to me. And I don't know how many of you can relate to that. And certainly some were, you could just call it flat out unethical. Others were just kind of borderline. One of the things that I never really was a big fan of was cold calling. I have yet to meet someone who's a really big fan of cold calling, although I know people who are good at it. And I learned how to do it, and I was good at it. I was actually really good at it, and I trained people on it, but I always had to kind of like get myself into the mode of being able to do it, and like feeling okay with it. Holly, good morning. Oh, Angela, good morning. Okay, so y'all are with me here. But there was a particular company I was working with, and that was the model that was taught of how to sell, is just call 100 people a day, say the same thing, and that's it, and you'll hit your goals. And that always just felt so like, it just, I don't know what else to say about it. It felt terrible to me. And I thought, people don't want to be getting these calls from me. I don't want to be making them. Why are we doing this? Isn't there a better way to do it? And so, my approach was, I'll do it. Like I'll do what's needed to do to put in the activity, and to like keep my job. But secretly, I focused on building a brand and building a platform, and creating a podcast and inviting prospects I wanted to work with that way. And then that approach got far better results than the just pounding the phones. But I wasn't really allowed to talk about it because it wasn't in alignment with what the company taught. And so I really honor that there are certain processes, like when you're leading a team, you have to have processes that everyone can follow that work. And there's certainly still organizations that do cold call. You probably don't want to have me as your trainer if that's your model, because I do think there are far more effective, powerful ways to do it. But even whether it's that or something else, I'm certain there have been times in your life and in your sales career or business career where something has been taught that felt either ineffective or felt unethical, I was having a conversation with a client yesterday who was like, my manager's asking me to do something to close this deal that doesn't really feel right to me, and I feel conflicted about it. And how often have you been there, right? Or been in that place where it's like you feel torn. And that was so what inspired She Sells, is that the way that I want to encourage you to think about this is that you will sell the most and generate the most clients when you're in alignment with who you are, which means that you're doing your activity from that place of your personal power, when you're connecting with customers in a way that feels good to you and to them. And when you're it's really about alignment. And when you can come at it from that place of alignment, then you create so much more powerfully. Then you create and you sell, it's like you top the leaderboards and people wonder what the heck you're doing. Well, you're in alignment, which can be hard to explain, but that's what it is. Holly, you're saying you're not a fan of cold calling either, at least not for the long term. Yeah, it's like sometimes you do it, and I still like IDM, I do that, but to me, like just literally pounding the phones and making phone calls, which is what was taught and what I still see being taught in a lot of organizations, is not the most effective. Michelle, you're saying you hate it and most don't even answer. Yeah. And I just really think we we have to learn to think for ourselves, right? And that's a lot of what today is about, is learning to think for yourself and trusting yourself in terms of what the right answer is for you. So I see so many ways in which the women I work with apologize for who they are. And I wanted to share three particular ways today. And if you fall into any of these categories or buckets, then hopefully this will help you stop. Okay. Because apologizing for who you are, it will, one, the energy of like guilt, shame is super, super low vibe. That's super actually close to death on the emotional vibrational scale. But two, it's not helping you and it's not helping anybody. Let me just check comments here. Angela saying forced false scarcity in marketing has always felt out of alignment for me. Amen. And that's like, that's so much of what's still taught, right? Is like, if make people feel like if they don't buy this thing right now, that their life is going to fall apart and they're like, and, create like falsely manufacture pain, or to your point, scarcity. Like can you get to where you want to go that way? Yeah. Can you maybe in the short term even sell more that way? Possibly. But you're going to have way more returns. You're going to have way more customer satisfaction issues. I had, Angela, I love that you shared this, and we'll get into these three ways in just a moment. But I had, who was on the podcast a while back? Lisa Woodruff, who built it's a seven-figure organizing company online. I had her on the podcast, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 episodes ago. And she said one of the core things that she's done that's been so important to her is she exactly, Angela, to your point, she never falsely manufactures scarcity. When she does a webinar, she doesn't have a countdown timer of like, if you don't do it by X date, then something's going to happen. And she even flat out says on her webinar, she's like, there's no deadline when you have to do this. There's no like, the sky's not going to fall apart if you don't do this right now. But if this feels aligned and if this feels right, I want to invite you to do it. And she has built so much trust from her clients, and her lifetime customer value is incredibly high. And she doesn't hard close, she doesn't hard sell. And so I want to invite you that if that way of, specifically in the sales world, if that has felt wrong to you, but you felt like, well, that's what's being taught, so maybe that's the only way to do it. No, there are far more powerful ways to do it. And anything that you're being asked to do that just feels wrong or doesn't feel in alignment, you can trust that there's a better way for you. You can always trust that. Sierra, good morning. Good to see you. So three main ways that I see both men and women, but we're gonna kind of speak specifically to women today, apologizing for who they are. And one is how they want to do things. The first is how they want to do things. And that kind of ties in with what we've been talking about here. Thank you so much for the hearts, by the way. Rita, good afternoon. And this is, it's really what we've been speaking about so far. But if you're being asked to sell in a way that feels out of alignment with you, or if you're feeling like you have to falsely create scarcity to close a deal by a certain time frame, then that's again, that's a very low vibe way to create. And I shared this story before, and I'll share it again this morning. I'm actually going to have this client on the podcast, I think next month. But I've got a client she's got her own business, but she also is head of sales for a large software sales company. And she recently closed a mega deal for them, but she said very specifically, and she shared this with me in a conversation, it was by actually leading with her feminine, which was she felt like to close that deal, it needed more relationship building than her leadership was encouraging her to do. It needed a slightly longer cycle. It needed more nurturing, and she was getting a lot of pressure from her higher ups to like close it now, close it now, close it now, right? Because a lot of times we get so tied to that, I got to close it by the end of this month or else. And it's like, or else what? Right? Like, I know we live in a world where there are numbers. I know, especially if you're working with a company where there's investors, et cetera, it's like we have to certainly be mindful of those things. But all too often, we actually kill deals and we kill opportunities because we try to like squeeze them to death to get it in by some deadline, because we get out of alignment with the real purpose of sales, which is helping other people and building those relationships. Right. And so she ended up closing a much bigger deal because she actually led with her intuition, which was knowing when to press the client to like move forward and make a decision, and knowing when to lean back and actually let that kind of build. And so the way you want to do things, I want to encourage you, especially for us as women, it's like, that's part of the inspiration behind She Sells, is that the very, and we all have both masculine and feminine energy, but the masculine energy is close it now, go out, kill it, hunt it. Like, it's very outcome oriented. And that is part of it. We have to be able to close. We have to know when it's time to help that client move forward. But we also, if it's all that, usually for us as women, that feels really out of alignment. And that also will end up ultimately losing you a lot of opportunities and deals, because you're creating this pressure that you're creating this false pressure that doesn't feel good to the customer. It doesn't feel good to you either. Angela's saying we can help leads prioritize signing up for our offer without emotional manipulation. Exactly. Amen. Amen. The second place where I so often see women apologizing, and I want to invite you to, if you're doing any of this, to stop, is for being too much. Okay. And how many of you, give me a heart or give me a yes, if part of your experience, maybe it was growing up, was that you were too much, whether that's emotionally. So yeah, a lot of this, right? Whether that's like emotionally, maybe you were told like, you not to feel things so deeply, like calm down, because for so many of us, right? Like when you were growing up, you were sensitive, you were intuitive, you were empathetic, and you learned that could get you hurt. You learned that you felt things too deeply and it felt like too much, so you shut it off. Or, I work with some women where, we do a fair amount of inner child healing work, and it's like, our parents were always, always, always doing the best they could with what they had. And they had their own stuff too that they're dealing with. But I do work with a lot of women where maybe their mom was jealous of them for how they looked or for how they were pursuing their dreams, or their dad told them they, were too much or too sexual or too ugly. Like, there are so many things, right? And so if there's any part of you right now that is apologizing for like, sometimes we don't even realize it, but just notice in your behavior. Do you downplay what you really think? Do you not speak up when you want to? Do you not share your opinion for fear of being wrong or for fear of making other people feel bad, right? Do you downplay how you look? Do you downplay, like, any of that is you're apologizing for being quote unquote too much because you think it's going to make other people feel uncomfortable. But you're the one who suffers because you never show up in your full power. So I would invite everyone here today, and this is a message I continually remind myself of too, is like, the best thing for everybody in your life is for you to be happy, is for you to be full, is for you to experience. I remember on my birthday last year, my wish was I want to experience the fullest expression of myself, because I felt like I had never allowed myself to do that before. And if you feel like you're living like this much of a sliver of your potential in terms of your income that you're creating, your love, your joy, your happiness, like I would invite you, thank you so much. I'm glad this is resonating. I would invite you to really, really start caring more about how you feel, because it doesn't help anybody for you to feel bad and for you to be less than. And in fact, the way that you serve the world, the way that you help whoever it is that you're holding yourself back for, whether it's your parents, whether it's your kids, whether it's friends, is by showing up as the fullest expression of you, because in doing that, it frees them to do the same. Okay. Let me just check. The Angela saying you were told too enthusiastic, too excited, calm down. Yeah. And gosh, I mean, it's first, like, I get that. I totally get that. And even sometimes it's like subliminal, right? But I've noticed even, as we raise Jack, it's like sometimes, sometimes Jason will say something, I'm like, calm down. And I'm like, and certainly I do stuff too. Like we both do stuff that I know is, we try our best to be the best parents to him. But this happened the other day, and I remember him telling him to calm down. I was like, no, I want him to be okay expressing himself. Y'all, as I talk about this, my hair is like migrating. I'm laughing because my hair is getting animated about this too. I should have pinned it down a little bit more. But yeah, like if you were told that, you may notice now, and it was just well-intentioned, positive intentions from your parents or whoever told you that. But are you still, to this day, are you now limiting yourself because you feel like you're too much, too enthusiastic, etc.? Because you can't be. Like that enthusiasm, that excitement, that eagerness, that's where you create powerfully. That's your power. And the third place where I'm curious, are you apologizing for being yourself, is for wanting more. Who here feels like you're apologizing for wanting more, or you're wanting, don't tell your hair to calm down. Yeah, I know, right? That is the truth. That is the truth. How many of you want more, but feel there's some part of you that feels guilty, feels bad, feels wrong? Okay, I'm seeing definite yeses and hearts. Yeah. And I've noticed in my own life, there's kind of certain like thresholds that we may reach where it's like, okay, this is the comfort zone of how much I can have, but not beyond this. And oftentimes it'll be, whatever your lifestyle was growing up. Like for a long time, I've matched in terms of income and in terms of lifestyle what it was for us growing up. And I realized that was like, I didn't even know I was doing it, but that was the comfort zone. And then as I've worked with other mentors and coaches and seen people like living a much bigger lifestyle, it was like, oh my gosh, like there's a whole different way to live that I wasn't giving myself permission for, even though I secretly wanted. And then I realized the only difference was just that these people who were living the life I wanted to live, they just gave themselves permission. And most of them didn't come from that type of lifestyle either, but they gave themselves permission to want more. And so this is where we can really, lean into our spiritual understanding, which is that as we live in an expanding universe, it keeps getting bigger. You're part of that universe. You are designed to continuously have more and have greater experiences and greater joy and love and more money and more peace and more fun and more prosperity. And so when you're not in that continuous expansion, you've kind of kinked yourself off. It's like you've cut yourself off because you've placed an artificial limit on yourself, usually because you're trying to please someone else, or it feels scary to go into the unknown, right? Is anyone dealing with that right now, or grappling with that? And it's not that it's a constant, like just more all the time. It's the way that I like to think about it is it's kind of like a stair step, like the way that we're designed to grow, because you will have times, and actually on the podcast next week, I do a solo episode where we kind of like go into a lot of different stuff. But I talk about over the summer for a few months, for me, it felt it felt tough. It felt heavy. It felt kind of like stagnation in certain ways. But then something unlocked and like the next level was reached very quickly. And so when I say that you're meant to consistently expand, you will have times that feel slower before your next up level. But I would encourage you to not think about it so much like you're going to dip, like you're designed to like go up and then go down and up and down, but more like a staircase where it's like you go up, then there may be an integration period, then you go up again, then there's another integration period. But overall, if you're not experiencing consistent expansion in all areas of your life, then there's part of you that's making yourself wrong for that. Like there's part of you that's not giving yourself permission for that. Oh my gosh, Allison, hey girl, so good to see you. And then not a good morning, so good, or good afternoon. I can't remember where you're based out of, but anyway, so good to see you. But so your desire for more is natural. It is natural. And you live in a physical world. And that's part of how we grow is we get to experience, we'd have these physical experiences. So I'll speak specifically to money, right? Like how many of you have found yourselves feeling like some sort of guilt or shame or judgment towards yourself for wanting to earn more money? And maybe you're earning more money than your partner. Maybe it's earning more money than your parents did. Maybe it's wanting a certain type of lifestyle, wanting a different type of home, wanting a different type of car. You live in a physical world. So you're designed to experience things physically and continuously experience better and more. And as you do, we talked about this yesterday as we talked about money mindset, but it is selfish to stay in scarcity. It is selfish to stay in poverty thinking. As you have more, you can give more, you can do more, and you get to experience more too. It's the true double blessing. So if any of those three areas right now, like we talked about today, are ways where you're apologizing for who you are, whether it's how you want to do things, like how you want to run your business, how you want to sell, or whether it's being too much and your fear that it's going to make other people uncomfortable, or your desire for more and for wanting more, I would encourage you to stop looking around outside of you so much. So a lot of times this happens because we look outside of us too much. We look at, well, what's so and so doing on social media, or what would so and so think of this, and start looking inside more. Start tapping in more. Start looking in more to, what do I want to experience? What feels great to me? What's my vision? What do I care about? Because you're the only one who has to live your life. Like we talk about that here, right? But you are the only one who has to live your life. So you might as well choose to do, like I said, I did for my birthday this past year. Like I want to experience the fullest expression of myself. And what would that be like? And get ready to be dazzled and excited by the prosperity, by the abundance, by the opportunities, by the expansion, and know that it is natural for you to have more and more. And as we experience that, sometimes parts of ourselves can get scared, right? I know that. I've been there. Like if there's part of you that's like, wait, is it okay for me to have this much? Or is it okay for me to have these opportunities coming in so fast? That is natural for you. That is your norm. That is how it's designed to be. And so that's where the inner child work comes in, right? That we do in the She Sells community of comforting that inner little girl or little boy who's scared and is like, wait, is this too much? Is this? And so we have to know what that is. That's just your scared inner little child, and we have to comfort him or her. But it's really, you are designed to continuously have more, experience more, and you're designed to do it in the fullness of your power. So I just want to encourage you today that if any part of you has been apologizing for who you are, what you want, how you want to do things, to release that, to drop that story. Because again, the only person you're hurting in it is yourself. And just decide today that you're going to see what's possible when you open up to the full expansion of yourself. All right, my friend, because it is beautiful. And not only is it going to make your life better, but it's going to make everyone's life better around you as well. So That's what I got for you today. I am so grateful to have spent this time with you this morning. I know so many of you personally who are here today, and whether we know each other or not, you're here for the perfect reason, and this message is for you. So I love you. I'm grateful for you. Tomorrow we are getting into a to the law of cause and effect, which is really helpful for you to know if there's stuff happening in your life where you're like, why are these deals not closing the way I would love for them to close? Or why is this relationship not happening the way I'd like for it to happen? It's a really good one to know. So we're going to get into it tomorrow so that you can be really empowered to take control of that, of whatever area of your life you want to grow in. Oh, Jamie, I didn't know you were here. Of course, I was thinking about you this morning too. So good to see you. You're so welcome. I love you, my friends. Wishing you a beautiful Thursday, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.